What is up, TFA fam? Welcome into the first look at Week 12 waiver wire ads. It is a bit ugly out there, but we're going to do our best to give you guys the information you need for your Week 12 ads. So with that out of the way, Kev, why don't you just jump right into it, man? Let's talk some quarterbacks for Week 12.
Yeah, this week I think we have a pretty decent list of guys we can go to here in this heading into Week 12 with Thanksgiving and everything else this week. Boy, was Week 11 ugly. But I digress. We have Cam Newton rostered in 51% of leagues. Does not play the Washington football team. You know what? What is this, amateur hour?
This is amateur hour. I'll look it up. Keep going.
Anyways, no, they play the Dolphins this week. Anyways, I don't know why I put Washington football team because that's who they played last week. Completed 21 of 27 passes for 189 yards and 2 touchdowns. He also rushed for 46 yards and had a touchdown, which was good for 26.16 fantasy points. The Panthers take on a Dolphins D that allows the 8th most fantasy points to quarterback. Campbell, to me, is like a weekly option with his ability to score with his arm and his legs. He looked really good today. Obviously, they did not get the win, but I thought he had some really good throws, did some good things on the ground. So for a player that's kind of came off the street, I think this is about as good as you can expect. Obviously, the passing game wasn't quite as what you were looking for with only 27 passes for 189 yards, but still his ability to pick up yards on the ground and score touchdowns, it's just going to make his floor so really good. So he is number one for me. If he is out there, I think if you're not somebody who doesn't have a strong quarterback, he's somebody that I think you can plug in every single week, not just a streaming option, but for people that if he is out there, maybe you have Patrick Mahomes who's going to be on bye this upcoming week. I think he's a good fill in for that. And then Carson Wentz this week, 55% rostered versus the Bucs. They continue to just destroy teams on the ground. It completed 11 of 20 for 106 and a touchdown. And their absolute beatdown of the Bills today. This next upcoming week, they face a Bucs defense that allows the 15th most fantasy points to the quarterback position on the season. This is going to be a game that they're going to have to throw the ball a lot more. They're not going to be able to just, destroy teams with Jonathan Taylor as much on this one. But Jonathan Taylor is an absolute beast and is likely the RB1, the number one draft pick next year coming off the board because he is just on another level right now than everybody else. Then you have Matt Ryan, which I really don't feel great about this, but he's only rostered in 50% of leagues. They do get Jacksonville this week. And it was an absolute brutal outing against the Pats on Thursday Night Football. But the Falcons do get a Jags defense that ranks 31st in pass DVOA. And Ryan will look to get back on track after scoring just 6 total fantasy points combined the last 2 weeks. He has scored a whopping 2 and 4 over the last 2 weeks. But the Jaguars are really bad against the pass. They are great against the run, which we saw today where they limited the 49ers rushing attack. Self-inflicted wounds really cost them in that game. But I digress. Then you have Taylor Heineken, who just continues to kind of go overlooked. 15% rostered against Seattle after another week. Another 20 fantasy points for Taylor Heineke. He threw for 206 yards on 60 completions and 3 touchdowns for a good old 23.14 fantasy points. Seattle's allowed the 9th most passing yards on the season, but have allowed the second fewest touchdowns. But we just saw today, Colt McCoy, of all people, just absolutely shred that defense for 300-plus yards and 2 touchdowns. So Taylor Heineke, I think, is a really good play. Plus, he's also utilized on the ground or utilizes his legs, so that's another factor for him. And then you have Tyrod Taylor rostered in 5% of leagues. Versus they get the Jets this week, completed 14 of 24 for 107, and also ran the ball 6 times for 28 yards and 2 touchdowns. This week, the Texans will look like to keep things on track against the Jets, who have allowed the 9th most fantasy points to quarterback and have been absolutely brutal against the run on the season. So I don't mind Tyrod. I think he's kind of an interesting play against the Jets. And what was just an absolutely just disgusting game between the Texans and the Titans, but they did get the win. So that is good to see. And, Tyrod, doing Tyrod type of things. So I don't mind him either. We have seen kind of a ceiling from him earlier in the year as well. So I think those are the players I'd be looking at. Normally, I would say possibly Justin Fields if he's out there, but he did suffer a rib injury today. Yep. So if you're really desperate, I guess Andy Dalton could be an option because they are playing the Lions. So on Thursday. So we'll have to see on that.
Well, from the grossness of Andy Dalton to the grossness of the Week 12 running back ads, really no priority ads here. We did have an injury today to Michael Carter, but I think the Jets backs are only in like the deepest of leagues because I don't think we're going to see one of those guys take over kind of the way that Michael Carter has been in terms of being used in the running and the passing game. I kind of think we see Tevin Coleman be the early down back and Ty Johnson be the passing down and change of pace option. So I think this week is probably best used for teams to go out there and grab handcuff type players where we typically, we're not going to draft handcuffs at the beginning of the year. But if they're sitting out there now as you're heading into your playoffs, this is the time to grab them. The ones that stuck out to me, Khalil Herbert, 33% rostered. We thought, especially Kev, especially you were on this train, I thought he was going to have a role as well, but he has had nothing with Monty coming back. So handcuff only, but we saw what he could do if Monty goes out, and they do have a really nice playoff schedule down the stretch. So he's someone to snag. Sony Michel, 24% rostered, and Ronald Jones at 21%. Outside of that, guys like Latavius Murray and Devonta Freeman, both of these guys are available in 65% or more of leagues. Now, there's not going to be a massive ceiling with either of these guys because, you're going to have to worry about Lamar Jackson taking rushes. Both these guys are going to be involved. This kind of 12-team league and higher for these guys. Murray saw in his first game back, he had 30 snaps and 12 opportunities. Freeman had 47 snaps and 22 opportunities, and he was utilized way more in the passing game. And then with Miles Sanders returning, Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, they both chipped in on the ground as well. Miles Sanders came back, and he was the lead guy. We had Jordan Howard put up the best production, but don't look too much into that box score because he only played 13 snaps, even with the Eagles, even with the Eagles leading for basically the entirety of that game. So Sanders is going to be the dude, but I do think we see a committee approach. So it is worth holding on to one of these guys, Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, just to see if a favorite shakes out. And we're not going to expect the Eagles to be going out and be leading like this the way they have been the past several games. And then just something to take note of, again, talked about him last week, Matt Breida. He only saw 8 snaps last week. That increased this week, but that was with the Bills, just getting absolutely smashed by the Colts. He was utilized in the pass game. Obviously, that put Moss on the bench. Moss was third in snaps between Singletary, Breida, and Moss. Again, not going to go crazy, but we did see some explosive plays out of Breida. Again, involved second straight week after being inactive for, I think it was 4 or 5 straight weeks. So just something to monitor. I'm not going to add Breida outside of the deepest of leagues. I know we had somebody in here on the Friday night stream that was in an 18-person league. That's when you can go add Matt Breida. But it is something to note because obviously there's not been a lot of excitement coming out of this backfield for the Bills. So outside of that, like I said, pretty ugly here with running backs. Is there anything more positive on the wide receiver side, Kev?
I will mention as well, I think something to monitor, I guess one player that you don't have on here is, one, surprise, Pete Carroll says that Rashad Penny's going to get more involved. He gets the first carry of the game. He rushes for 18 yards, and all of a sudden you just see him pull up, and you're like, oh, here we go. And, of course, he exits with a hamstring injury. So, I don't know. I think DJ Dallas in deeper leagues is somewhat interesting because they just don't have anybody else, and he actually looks like he had some juice and scored a touchdown. So, that would be about the only thing other thing I could talk about there at the running backs. But let's jump over to wide receivers. Another week, another time of me bringing up Darnell Mooney. Rostered in 55% of leagues, 5 receptions on 16 targets for Darnell Mooney for 121 yards, a touchdown, 23.1 PPR points with a 47% target share in this game. Double-digit fantasy points in 5 of his last 7 games. He's a strong wide receiver, too, against the Lions on Thursday. And he has like I've said, 33% market share of the air yards in this offense. And I would actually be surprised if Allen Robinson could make it back. If he wasn't good, he didn't practice at all this week. Very short week of rest. So I would expect Darnell Mooney to once again be the wide receiver 1 on this offense. We'll have to, like I said, monitor Justin Fields, who may not be out. But regardless, I think Andy Dalton's competent enough to be able to go out and lead this offense against the Lions. So he is number 1. Next up is Elijah Moore, 51% rostered on Yahoo, 40% on ESPN, 8 receptions on 11 targets, 141 yards and a touchdown, 29.6 PPR points, which is wide receiver 3 currently on the week. He's averaging 15.6 fantasy points over his last 5 games, averaged 7.4 targets, 5 receptions, 69.8 receiving yards, and 0.8 touchdowns over that span. And he has really kind of developed into a strong wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 moving forward, regardless of the quarterback. Because as we've seen, it doesn't really matter who the quarterback is. He has been able to produce. So Elijah Moore, if he's out there, should not be any longer. And then just kind of the rest of the guys, rest of the list here. We have Kadarius Toney, Kenny Golladay. Both of them are almost right at that 60% mark. They don't obviously play until tomorrow night. But if either one of them will be available, I think that both of them should be added. Listen, Robbie Anderson, not sexy, but he did go out, only rostered in 49% of leagues, but he had 5 receptions on 6 targets for 30 yards, 12 targets over the last 2 games. It seems to be getting more involved in the offense. And then you have Van Jefferson's on bye, but if he's out there, he should be rostered. Traequan Smith, I have him a little bit higher here than a lot of these other guys. He's only rostered in 2.7% of leagues, but he has 5 receptions on 8 targets again today for 64 yards. He has double-digit fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 weeks. So this dude is widely available. Remaining schedule is Buffalo, Dallas, the Jets, Tampa Bay, Miami, and Carolina. And every single week, like I think I talked about earlier about him, is his matchups on a weekly basis moving forward are terrific. And so, inside the slot where he plays the majority at. And so I like Traequan Smith, adding him. I think he's a sneaky add in 12-team leagues and above. So I like him. And then I have Laviska Shenault on here, roster in 39% of leagues, 5 receptions on 5 targets for 50 yards. And one reason I do like him a little bit more is because Jamal Agnew is likely done for the year. Looks like it's it looks like a knee injury or a hip injury. I can't, checking out Pro Football Doc, Dr. Chow, who is the guy that I always go to for this stuff, said he looks like he's probably done for the year. And so with him gone, that's a lot of targets we're going to be seeing out of this offense. And I don't know, Urban Meyer, maybe you should use the guy who's built for that role and Laviska Shenault. So we'll see on him. So I don't mind adding him either. Rostered only 39% of leagues. And then from there, you have other guys like A.J. Green, James Crowder, Rondell Moore. I don't know what they're doing with Rondell Moore. I mean, it's like he just got transported into a new offense and he has the same exact role he did in college, because 11 receptions on 11 targets for 50 yards. He is strictly volume-based. That's it, because he is getting nothing past like the 3-yard line. Everything is short passes, and it's whatever he can do with it afterwards. He is getting no deep targets whatsoever. So he is very, very hard to trust, especially once Kyler comes back and really once DeAndre Hopkins comes back. There's going to be so many mouths there. Rondell Moore, again, very boom or bust. And or as I put it, firecracker or bust, because there's not a lot of boom with him. And so it's more, I think at best, you're looking at 15, 16 points. And then you have Marquez Callaway, Mr. Touchdowns, 3 straight weeks of a touchdown for Marquez Callaway. But again, doesn't really see a lot of volume. And he's kind of touchdown or bust. Russell Gage, 5 receptions on 8 targets, 64 yards against the Pats, 17% rostered. But he does get a great matchup against the Jags. So I don't mind him as a flex option next week. And then I put Tim Patrick on here. He's going to be hard to trust with so many mouths to feed in that offense. So that's really what I got right there at wide receiver for this week.
Let's move on over to the tight ends for this week. Basically the same names that we were looking at last week, to be quite honest. We have to pay attention to Logan Thomas. He still has yet to come off of IR, but it would, hopefully seem like he's getting close to returning. He's available in, I think, like 53% of ESPN leagues. There's been a lot of Dan Arnold chatter out here in the TFA streets the past couple of weeks. We did caution that it could be ugly this week with that matchup against San Fran, but we didn't think it was going to be this ugly when he gave us a big old gooser. But it does get easier the next couple of weeks, matchups against Atlanta, Rams, Houston, Tennessee, Jets, and then New England to close out the fantasy season. Somebody who did come through for us was Adam Troutman. Now, a slight word of caution here. Nick Van Nett was active for the first time this year in this game. Did get some snaps, was involved. He only ran 7 fewer routes than Troutman did, but Van Nett only saw 1 target to Troutman's 8. Troutman, I think, had 5 for 58 and a score in this game. And then quietly over the past 4, Troutman has seen 6, 7, 6, and 8 targets. So, I mean, this team is going to look like it's going to continue to be playing from behind. And Troutman looks like he is a favorite target of Trevor Siemian. And then just some other names to mention. Cole Kmet, again, another gooser. but does get that matchup against the Lions on Thursday, so you got to like that. And Tyler Conklin, didn't exactly come through, put up 35 yards on just 3 catches, but it should be a little bit easier sledding for him going forward. He's still, the clear-cut tight end one from Minnesota, still running a solid number of routes, especially with the way that this game turned out, the back and forth with the 60, close to 70 combined points here from both these teams. I would have thought that Tyler Conklin would have had a little bit better of a day, but when we get to tight ends, beggars cannot be choosers. So we'll either throwing in an extra wide receiver play here with Cooper out, Cedric Wilson, and then Lamb. Yeah. So not a bad option there either.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I don't know. This offense might not be all that exciting, to be honest with you. They do play the Raiders, but I don't know. If they're missing Lamb and if they're going to be missing Lamb and Amari Cooper, I don't know. I don't know if I really want any of these guys, to be honest with you. So
yeah,
it's pretty gross out there.
It is. Like I said, running back, it's a handcuff week. Tight end, a lot of the same names.
It's just been really like these last the last few weeks have just been brutal. Not a lot of close games. A lot of the teams that a lot of people are probably going to have the most players on have not done a whole lot. Just a lot of grossness out there each and every week. I was a little bit shocked by the way the Bills just absolutely got roasted, but I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't be. They're going through kind of the same thing the Chiefs went through, earlier in the year, right? Where they're all of a sudden they're losing games to teams that you wouldn't think they would lose to. And not that the Colts, because I think the Colts have actually been playing really good football for the last month and a half, but like the way that they got beat, they got beat down in that game. And then Jonathan Taylor just put his foot on their neck and never let it off. So it's just kind of how it's been. So really the only good game today was really, I guess the Packers and the Vikings game. Other than that, there was a lot of just really ugly games.
Yeah.
So,
but still thankful for football. Got the Thursday slate coming up this week. Going to be dropping rankings a little bit earlier this week, so keep your eyes out for that. And as always, join the Discord. You can always catch us over there and just talk general tomfoolery and any other fantasy football questions you guys have. So see you guys in the Discord. Good luck the rest of this week, and we'll see you next week.